Hey, everybody. Welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and now also the publisher at Autonomy Global. By the way, we are in an incredible month. We've dedicated to this theme of data-driven ops, sponsored by Airspace Link. And today we have a guest coming to us live from Canada. Chris Hood is the CEO and founder of Ctrl, Control, whatever you want to call it. It's a cool company, and they are doing a ton of data-driven ops. Met Chris, by the way, in Ottawa in November at the Aerial Evolution of Canada's conference there, and we got to talking, and it was just like, you know what, data-driven ops, that's exactly what we do. So Chris, excited to have you on the show and excited to talk about everything you do data-driven.
Of course, yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Dawn. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you take it away, but happy to be here. Happy to talk to you guys. I met you at GeoWeek a few years ago, and always try to put a face to the name and get to a point where we could come on a show and talk about what Control's up to these days.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I met you at GeoWeek, I apologize. I don't remember that, but you meet so many people. In fact, I'm in a hotel room right now because I'm in Denver at GeoWeek 2025. And what a great conference that has been. But I want to talk about you, Chris. So tell us a little bit about your background.
For sure. Yeah, I started out like many drone operators in the space, kind of circa 2016, 17, playing around with Phantoms, and had a pretty traditional come up story, getting into inspections and mapping and marketing videos using drones. And kind of found our niche within the wind and renewable space. This is kind of 2017 when Precision Hawk was really building into Canada and building its inspection program with Vestas Global. And so I was a subcontractor really for that Precision Hawk drone inspection program, utilizing Inspire 2s on for blades and things like that. And then it really became apparent that the renewable industry could benefit substantially more from drone technology and inspection technology. So I myself was, again, still a subcontractor, kind of bouncing around the world of renewables. I worked for a company called SkySpecs, and they're kind of really honed in, the use case of autonomous systems for blade inspections, again, supporting the renewable industry. And kind of throughout that journey, I'd say just talking to different site managers and stakeholders in the renewable space, it was again evident that there's a lot more that drones could do to support the operations of renewables and further the development of renewables. So that's kind of where we've dug in and sort of stuck a flag in the ground, if you will, over the last few years, and we're having a lot of fun working with that industry. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And by the way, Chris, and everybody out there, hello, we are live once again. We got Fire Mech Tech Rob out there. He's a super fan saying good morning from Monterey, California. So awesome always to have Rob chiming in on the show. Thank you so much. I love that you just kind of, like you said, lasered in, you focused in on renewables. What about renewables was the thing that kind of captured your attention and said, here's that gap. Here is where we can make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, talking to stakeholders in renewables, it was clear that they face a tremendous challenge getting these projects approved, and then actually maintaining them is a whole other story where there's a whole remote sensing component to planning out where to put a solar or wind or transmission asset. And then there's the farther downstream issue of maintaining this thing when you have what is still a very dangerous and busy industrial site at any given time, and being forced to think about innovative ways to put drones and robotics into those areas. And again, power line inspections, blade inspections, things like that can remove human interface or input from that danger zone. And so it's really just like it was really just a conversation around where the biggest pinch points within the renewable space, and then where are the most mature technologies, innovations that we can implement today. And so it felt as though like we were steering the ship for them. Like we kind of we're able to handhold some of our customers through the earlier stages of a drone program discussion, and figure out which parts of your industry or even your business are going to be affected by this the most. And it turns out, we're working with obviously the engineering teams and the planning teams, but health and safety, compliance, pretty much everyone inside of an energy organization can benefit from rich data sets like as drones we know can produce. So yeah.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. As you were talking, I think about asset inspection, that's what you think about. You think about inspection, but you kind of you outline the soup to nuts, if you will, like from where are we going to even place this asset? Like where are we even going to build it? And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because of course here at GeoWeek, you've got the whole, AEC crowd, right? The architecture, engineering and construction crowd. And the fact that you've been able to kind of tap into that crowd and then like the energy folks all at the same time. I mean, you're spanning a couple different markets when you think about it, Chris, and what you're doing. But at the same time, it's niche in so far as it's renewable. So that's really an interesting approach. But I want to kind of focus for a second on asset monitoring. And, you guys are unique in your approach to that and specifically. So walk us through a little bit about how you view that and the different technologies you're incorporating for those inspections.
Of course, yeah. I want to say thanks to like all of our suppliers and partners in both the services, but also the SaaS support space. We've utilized every major tool under the hood of the drone umbrella, if you will, from the Drone Deploy and Pix4Ds and Scapedos of the world, and even been able to branch out into some partnerships with companies like Cyberhawk with their iHawk platform. And then delivering to other customers in a different stream with like ZiteView platform and their amazing inspection dashboard. And so, yeah, I mean, we've actually been fortunate to be able to leverage a lot of those relationships to partner up on a project and deliver a customer, a solution that fits their specific needs, whether it be transmission or wind. What we found consistently is that like the majority of these orgs are just they have a GIS program or they have a GIS shop in house, but they don't have really that bridge between every different side of the operation, be it again development, health and safety, engineering, etc. And so we have a lot, big titans of the industry, Esri and Autodesk, Hexagon with their amazing tools that can kind of start to bridge those gaps. But even beneath that layer, there's some sub-niche kind of gaps, if you will, that both are drone-specific geospatial space and then the traditional geospatial space aren't really solving for. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that we're gonna start rolling out and playing with, and things we've had some minor success is the idea of pulling SCADA information in near real-time analytics of these energy sites and the performance to the traditional GIS side, be it maps, inspection information, even simple things like panos and videos that can go really well with either live analytics or live video feeds. And so yes, for those that don't know, SCADA is really just the real-time central nervous system, if you will, of an energy site, or even in a building. You might have a building management system or a BMS that can really just tell you on a quick high level what the power draw is, what kind of power is coming in, the temperature, even has things like the weather and the date and time, all those kind of timestamp metrics, along with those power curves on power generating sites, that again would be complemented extremely well by GIS and let's say drone or robotic fueled information. So yeah, it's a crazy world. Yeah,
it is a crazy world, and like, man, now I know why you're like data driven ops. That's for us, because I mean, I don't know anybody that's pulling in SCADA like what you're talking about and kind of fusing that data with geospatial data and drone data. SCADA, by the way, everybody, it stands for supervisory control and data acquisition. It's kind of like, what Chris said, that nerve center of a lot of critical infrastructure. It's a cyber functionality, if you will, a computer system that monitors and controls machinery and processes, some of the ones Chris talked about in real time. But not only that's wild, Chris, you're going to bring this in, fuse it all together. Like, we didn't talk about this, and maybe because in your brain GIS like implies we're pulling in satellite data, but look, most people in the drone world, and you know this, right? Because you've been to conferences, you see, your kind of drone crowd, and then you've got your geospatial crowd. They're starting to blur together a lot more lately. But even in some of these events, I'll give you an example, like GeoBiz, GeoGov. The idea of drone data is something that is not like a focus of their efforts in terms of the mapping data they're getting, because they're getting that wide area either from manned aircraft or they're getting it from satellites. You're pulling all of that in. Is that right? Like, you're already doing that and adding the drone layer. And now you're going to add the SCADA layer as well.
The SCADA is a trickier one for sure. It's going to take time to establish, the let's call it the trust, if you will, from the customer side and things like that. But I would say, to more your point, or question, the GIS with the traditional analytics piece and the future analytics piece, like, yes, we are already aggregating, dozens of terabytes of, like you said, satellite, drone-based, even phone or mobile-based geospatial information, and unfortunately, it's like a lot of these amazing tools that we use are kind of very limited in some of these scaled capacities, and so we're kind of going back to farther upstream to the Esri and Google and AWS ecosystems, and asking, okay, what can be done there? And I'll just be blatant, like, we are playing with our own tooling that can aggregate and actually play as more of a delivery tool to some of this information for customers. So we'll still utilize those SDKs and APIs through our suppliers, and Pix40 engine is a great example. Even open source tools like open source point cloud engines, things like that, are amazing display tools. But make no mistake, we're still heavily reliant on the big data suppliers and data warehouses to do this processing, AWS, Google, things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, we'll know soon how successful that is, and I guess I want to just caution myself, but we're not trying to take the whole geospatial world on. It's really specific to renewables, grid connected assets, energy development and operations, specifically within those spaces. But
well, and you can tailor, right, the data that you're pulling in, and what you need to use. That's amazing. Satellite data, again, a lot of drone folks out there don't fully appreciate. I always keep saying, like, hey, we're talking about space in Autonomy Global. We're talking about space on this show, on our full crew, because nothing happens without space, right? Whether it's GPS that everybody just takes for granted will always be there and may not. We know that's one thing. But the data you're pulling in from, like you said, Esri, Maxar, there's so many companies out there doing satellite imagery. Google, AWS. What I didn't appreciate fully was, until like just the other day, I heard a briefing. Some of these platforms are only updated like every 3 months in terms of, I think Google is one, and I know that's ground-based. They're driving around with those vehicles. They're taking the imagery that way. Satellites, of course, pass around the Earth, and so there's going to be some lag time in terms of like how frequently you're getting that imagery. Drones fill that gap for near-in stuff, and you guys are perfecting that. But I want to talk for a second about the satellites, because it's interesting, and not a lot of people, I think, fully appreciate the extent to which all of us are using this data on a daily basis. But of course, with you in your your kind of renewable energy focused area, how much you use it for. Can you tell us, like, the value of satellite data, what you're using it for, and like what industries you feel that it is, best suited for.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to first shout out our new friends, Skywatch. I know there's some confusion lately between Skywatch Insurance and Skywatch Satellite Data. Skywatch is a satellite firm, satellite aggregation and retail firm based here in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. And basically, yeah, they were one of the first to market that could allow for any user to use a credit card to purchase satellite data. And being new to the space, I found that like exceptionally like helpful, because it was like I don't have to be a government agency to basically see the latest and greatest satellite information. So you could task and also purchase historical satellite information. So yeah, I mean, I want to caution again and say I'm learning more about that space. Our firm is learning more about that space. We're heavily
Yeah.
using purchasing satellite data right now, and it's incredibly helpful ahead of a deployment, just planning to show the customer, hey, this is a quick snapshot of what's already on the ground today. So I'd say a highly underutilized and undervalued tool for especially DSPs and other GIS firms. So yeah, I want to also highlight that with the recent California wildfires, we were out there conducting some utility inspections pre-fire. And what I couldn't help notice, during was obviously the immense, support that was received, by the LA County and the area, by the remote sensing community. And there's another website that published 8 centimeter resolution. It was superimposed satellite imagery up to 8 centimeter GSD, and that was from a satellite. Like that was
Yeah, that is
absolutely
pretty
mind
crazy, like the
blowing,
resolution they're
right?
getting from satellites now. They were talking about that at
Yeah,
GeoVision and Maxar Technologies. I mean, they're dual use, right? They
yeah,
do a lot for the military, but they were one company that was giving free imagery to public safety during
yeah,
California wildfires. So just unbelievable what's happening. And I think
totally.
people hear space and they think commercial space. I think they think Elon, they think, some of these launches, but there are a lot of commercial satellite companies out there. And you just gave a shout out to, one in Canada, which is pretty cool that like you said, you could pop your credit card in, you can actually task a satellite to get the imagery you need. I mean, that's kind of insane when you think about it. But Chris, I want to talk about,
Sure.
the ops that you do. So we talked about the data that you're ingesting, the data that you're collecting, but let's talk specifically about your advanced mapping and modeling services and,
Mhm.
kind of what you're doing in that space.
Of course. Yeah, and really, it's just trying to create a seamless transition for the customer on collected imagery with with what's going on the ground. And so I want to shout out some of these other tools that, as I mentioned earlier, kind of allow for an iPhone image to a 360 camera to a drone image, to a map, and eventually a 3D model, point cloud, satellite image. Going farther upstream to kind of create that full spectrum or journey for that end user. And so yeah, right now we have some software developers working on really that transition and that highway, if you will, and just making that customer experience, seamless. Whether it's a PDF report or an online dashboard, within a minute or two, your user should really be able to get after, or get the information that they're after. And it's just trying to lower that bar, that the barrier to entry, and lower that bar for our users, I think is the number one objective. And I think we're hopefully in 2025 we can start to bridge more partnerships with the Googles and AWSs and Esri's of the world, to bring that level of accessibility that they've provided for the consumer side
Yeah.
back to enterprise, industrial, and energy developers. So I hope to share more of the secret sauce in coming episodes and whatnot. But I'm sure your viewers and ours will see some updates from Control this coming year on what those products are exactly and what they mean for the industry. So
Well, that's awesome. And, I mean, you're collecting tons of data already. I mean, we talked about the different data streams you're ingesting, from satellites to drone imagery, to, in the future, potentially SCADA data. So how do you process and analyze the large quantities of data that you guys are collecting and ingesting to give that actionable intelligence that you're referring to those decision makers in these companies or organizations you're working with?
Yeah, so really we've stood up our own site, and it's really an amalgamation of a few Esri products that can do large scale photo map ingestion and display, plus some custom dashboards, really. So I think the industry has built some solutions, again, catered to blades or transmission lines or solar panels, et cetera. But really, as I hope the industry really understands, like, what what is what is there and further needed, that needs to be refined, is really like just like literally like JPEG image capture and geolocation to those images. So like it's like some of the tools that are succeeding the most in the space right now are amazing at clustering images and creating a workspace for an end user that is almost centered around where that sensor is and what they're capturing in that space and time.
Right.
I'm sorry of butchering the answer, but it's like Fulcrum just came out with an amazing field app on your phone that can essentially take a photo and instantly analyze it as you're filling out your report. And by the time you get back to your truck, some of that field data that you captured on your smart device has already been processed and analyzed by an AI compute engine. And that's kind of where we're sort of nudging ourselves towards with a more macro side, drone and satellite and aerial mapping space. So it's like, sorry, I'm not answering your question directly. It's like, we're trying to shorten that time and from capture to delivery, and it's really hard to do at the macro scale. And again, for a sense of image, or sense of scale, we're really capturing anywhere between 80,000 acres of
Wow.
sub 5 centimeter orthomosaics in a week of capture, and up to 1,000 linear miles of mapping and inspections completed with primarily drone-based teams inside of a few days with just a handful of operators. So we're feeling like we're maxing out the tech and what's possible with multi-rotors and small VTOL systems. But I want to drop in that we're really excited for the next generation of regulations from the FAA and Transport Canada when it comes to beyond visual line of sight, and systems that will allow us to do that, right? So yeah, it's kind of it's a wild battle, because on one end we're facing the constraints of the data management and aggregation side and delivery for customer, and the other side is trying to battle the tech and the regulation as well. So
well, Chris, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was going to go ding 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 when you said AI, because you're talking like 80,000 acres, and the level of fidelity of data that you're collecting, to have a human go through that would be and that would take months, if not years, to find anomalies, especially, I mean, look, we know the human eye isn't awesome either in detecting things. Sadly, we've had actually a midair collision, right, in DC recently. And part of that, I think we'll find out later, when they look at causes, part of that is just the fallibility of kind of the human eyeball. And, having AI to do this seems to be the way to go. And definitely, I'd say, not a buzzword anymore. Like you said, Fulcrum, they're actually here at GeoWeek. They gave a presentation. They're not the only ones. There's a lot of AI solutions on this floor this year, which I think is kind of a first, and not just nascent, or, hey, this is a prototype. It's like you said, there's actually an app on your phone that you could use today. So I think AI and incorporating that into the back end on the analytics side is going to take it all to the next level. And you really need that, honestly, in the amount of data you're collecting. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some other interesting things you're doing, Chris, or getting into. So we talked quite a bit about like the asset side with renewable energies, from soup to nuts, from the beginning of construction and mapping that area as safe to build something here, to when you have those assets actually built, and then maintaining them and inspecting them, monitoring them, all of those things that you're doing in your business. You've recently started kind of looking at this ISR, which is very much a military term, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance area. Tell us just a little bit about that, because you've got a lot of different drones in your toolkit. And, ISR is, I mean, it's different from what you've been traditionally doing, and what you kind of formed your company around. Tell us about that journey.
Of course, yeah. I want to say I'm totally imposterous using that term. I have very little to zero military experience and background, so I joke with my friends that we are positioning ourselves to support the ISR space with drone and SUAS, and we'll ultimately see a greater pivot, be it either through Ctrl or one of our partner companies to really service that space. And what I mean by that is public safety and wildfires are the two sort of bigger issues they're facing, and I should say now border security and overall national security that we're seeing drones take a larger part in. And I think yeah, it's clear to me that really from our discussions internally and with our customers, even their operating sites are facing, risk of fire and natural disaster constantly. And
Yeah.
so, previously we've had to, let's say, demobilize or stand down in a situation where a power generating facility is a threat of a wildfire, or even
Yeah.
in the face of one. And it felt really silly that we have these tools in this this exceptional resume of pushing drones to the limits and beyond, and then in that face of danger, again, due to our lack of experience and knowledge perhaps prior, have to stand down. So yeah, I think it's a greater initiative of ours this year to train our operators on first aid. Obviously they should already have that operating on a site like this, but search and rescue, and trying to partner with a couple agencies that can potentially arm our team up with that experience. We might look to bring on some public safety professionals that have worked in the space that can guide us through that process. But overall, I think Ctrl long term should look towards supporting within Canada alone, wildfire mitigation efforts, ahead of a blaze and then during a blaze as well. And then further public safety in Canada could also use a bit of a step up from the means that exist today to what's needed to support, let's say, the RCMP, local police, things like that. So yeah, the ISR term can definitely be used militarily and on the defense side, and that's not where we're focused right now. I think there's a longer term play within the Canadian space to beef up our border security and our national security, again, using things like the Reaper drones and the new GA contract that the Canadian Defence guys signed. Really happy to see that level of buy-in from our government, and again, Ctrl will continue to do whatever it can to just be on the sidelines and support. But yeah, I think it's right now the energy side is where we just want to be able to support those causes as needed. Again, with our teams in California over the last few weeks, I think they were evacuating on the first week of January there, and it was just it was a whole different world, right? I was at home, thankfully, and the team was deployed, and I was playing ETC with the screens up and the fire hotspot apps, kind of trying to navigate guys to safely demobilize. And it seems in those higher adrenaline areas, that's when some of our team, I shouldn't say has the most fun, but it's when they switch on and truly engage with the work. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And it's just like we just see it as we're operating in already such harsh and remote environments that I think it would be really engaging to again look to support the industry with ISR efforts. So yeah.
No, I think that's great. And for what it's worth, at least in the United States military, just because ISR, the first word is intelligence, and that has implications for the public, that you're collecting intelligence on things or people. When it came to domestic, crises like the ones you're talking about, like whether it's a wildfire or something along these lines, and supporting those, we used to call it, and I think they still do, incident awareness and assessment, or IAA. So focused more on that awareness term for the incident. And, I think all the things you're talking about, Chris, kind of fall in this awareness bucket, whether it's situational awareness, incident awareness. Fun fact, I actually I still write for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine. I just did a piece on the California wildfires. And, I found it really interesting. You talked about before the fire, there's a lot of things drones can be used for in terms of mapping, as you suggested. Especially those the wildland urban interface, the WUI they call it, and because that's like a danger zone, and cutting back some of that shrubbery, if you will, or wild areas that can ignite near housing developments, and then during the actual incident. I think what they found with the winds, the Santa Ana winds they had there, that it was really hard to get drones off the ground flying there. I mean, they couldn't even get like helicopters or like large manned aircraft with the winds they had there. That was crazy. One area you didn't mention, which I'm sure you're thinking about, is of course after the fire. Sadly, those damage assessments, whether it's for insurance, whether it's for your municipality, using those maps that you created up front to then look afterwards and say, okay, this used to be a building here. We know what that used to look like. And, the 3D modeling and things like that, I think are really going to change the game when it comes to disaster response and disaster recovery, as well as mitigation, all kind of phases of disaster issues. I do want to ask you a little bit about 3D modeling. We really haven't talked about that in terms of some of the things you're doing. I assume you're, when we're talking about that output and, kind of that, you mentioned PDFs or reports that you can give people, but are you guys deep into the 3D modeling space with some of and 2D that, some of the applications that you're using to give to clients?
Yeah, yes, we are. We use it as part of our journey, let's say, to delivery. I found 3D modeling to be more beneficial, useful for the team that's really processing the information than sometimes even the end customer. So it's like a lot of customers will say, thank you so much. That's an amazing model. It's really pretty. But you know what? I need just the end report. So
yeah. I guess it
it's
depends on your client is, right? Like for sure,
sure.
the engineer is going to want to see
Exactly.
that model, but like maybe
Sometimes,
the CEO is going to be like, just give me the report. Oh, and by the
you'd
way,
be
give me an
surprised.
executive summary in 5 bullets. Yeah.
More and more engineers are saying, I again, that's great. Thank you for using that, $250,000 LiDAR sensor on that job or whatever. However, we actually only need a few points per square foot as our, for us to produce our surfaces and things like that. No, and so I do want to shout out, a couple companies we've been working with, Cone Labs here in Canada. We've actually previously worked a little bit with Michael Cohen, Key AI, just to test out, really what Key can do from an object detection standpoint. Rust, corrosion, concrete spalling, things like that. And I actually want to say again, like someone like Ted Strasmir, he's been a bit of a North Star for a lot of the 3D space reality capture industry, because and again, him influencing back to where you can put a Skydio or a drone to capture those fine concrete defects and things like that actually plays directly into our space with renewables and just asset management, EAM in general. And so, like substation, pads, things like that. even transmission lines, they are sometimes stood up on the side of a mountaintop and have concrete shoring or piles that they're built up on. And so I'm finding that the modeling of the sub foundations are really key in a lot of these areas. Less so the structures themselves. Inspection imagery can usually take care of those, but I think I'm most excited for what's coming up next with sort of the mesh model relationship with point clouds and photogrammetric meshes. So I'm keeping an eye on that world. I think there's some activity going around on the R&D side with NERFs and Gaussian splatting, becoming more and more accurate as that industry progresses. But I want to say that we have a pretty awesome 3D viewer for project delivery, and then again, like Nira, Cone Labs, even RN, are companies that have supported us previously in some of that image detection and image analysis with large language models and AI. I think today the biggest advancement, at least on the 3D side, is being able to deploy a Mavic or a Skydio system, and those systems themselves have their own onboard computers that can do 3D object detection and navigate fairly seamlessly, and actually have enabled better 3D modeling capabilities from the operators. So it's like there's so many places to play. It's where do you pick your mark? But I think it would be pretty fun to be able to partner with a couple of those firms and build out, or at least share some of these use cases. So we've started to bridge those relationships with these OEMs, and finally been able to share back some feedback about what do we want to see from an improvement standpoint, and how do we even help beta test some firmware and things like that. And so I think it's just a really exciting time to be in the industry, and you can kind of touch a little bit of everything. So
and you guys continue to grow. I mean, you're looking at new markets, you're looking at ingesting different kinds of data, but you've also, I mean, you mentioned it, but let's be very crystal clear about this. I mean, you're in Canada, Toronto, right, is your main headquarters, is that right?
Yeah, just near Toronto. Yeah.
Near Toronto. And then did you open up a US presence as well, or are you just doing business in the US? Like, how's that working?
Yeah, we do have kind of a US entity, if you will, Control USA, and we've let's say we actually had to make it so we were compliant with a lot of our contracts and MSAs in the US. And so we're still looking at a couple strategic hires. We have our contract network and our pilots and under the Control MSA umbrella, but really we're still looking for that home state. I think Denver is a great choice, and we have a lot of friends in Denver, so that could be a spot to put it in HQ. But we do have a lot of active projects in the Southwest of the US, and definitely seeing that as a not just emerging market. It's now the majority of our business comes from down there. So anything we can do to further support our resources and our teams down there, our assets down there, we'd love to do that. I think the first step would be maybe buying some real estate for the company down in that area. We'll see what happens in the coming months. But
or just rent. I mean, there's plenty of places depending on what you're looking to achieve, sure, or how many people you need in an office building. But there's a lot of
the amount of money we spend on hotels and things like that is ludicrous, right?
It's probably
the other DSPs that we joke that we should just go in on a house together and share it, even though we're competitors and things like that.
Actually, it's so funny you say that, because I'm not going to mention the group. They're going to be on the show soon. I'll just drop that hint. But I know they actually did that. They bought a house in a particular state. None of them really live there, but they go there so much that it's like the house, and that's what they do. So it's not unheard of for businesses to do that. Really, that's really funny. So that's amazing. I hope you do come to Colorado. Please let me know. Ring me up, of course, if you do, and when you're in town. But one thing I heard here at Geo Week, which happens to be in Denver, is that people are more frequently mapping entire cities. And I think you're doing that too. Like there's a city, is it in Canada that you're using to
Yeah.
map the city? Like, okay, so explain this use case, because I think people get, asset inspection or construction, surveys, before you build something, ISR, incident awareness, whatever you're going to call it. But this idea of like mapping cities with drones, most people don't think about that. Tell me what you're doing there.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, it was actually an exercise that when some of our pilots were back off rotation, we were able to. We just thought of like, hey, we just mapped out like 60,000 acres in the Southwest U.S.
Yeah.
Let's just like have some fun at home. And so yeah, our hometown, Guelph, Ontario, where I grew up, it's like 20. I want to say it's 20,000 acres, just under. And with a couple teams, we deployed some Mavics, and it took several days, in fact, and it was a great tool. They were kind of freaking out because they're like, "Oh man, like, we got to have parachutes and do the TC and have Canada approvals and stuff like that." And it went off, seamlessly. And so it was like, holy smokes, is there a whole, piece of the industry that we're missing out on right now? And yeah, I mean, it proved invaluable to that municipality, and as well, like, it just furthered the conversation piece of, how can we use this amazing tech to help these cities out. And I think we talked to some mayors in Ontario, and specifically Guelph's mayor, and everyone around North America globally is dealing with housing issues. And that base map was a great foundation, a very cost-effective foundation for them to hand off to their city developers, to other developers and things like that. And honestly, we did that for free, just for fun.
Wow. Because people are charged for that, my friend. I'm just saying, I'm not going to mention there is a company here. It's kind of almost crowd that with pilots. You know who I'm talking about.
They're friends. Yeah.
They're friends. I mean, let's just say it then. Spexio. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
They're like doing little spexigons around the world, like but it is really, really, really interesting. So that is yet another cool use case, where you're providing data to people. You're ingesting it, you're providing it in a way that's useful. So we are getting super close to our time here, Chris, and I want to make sure. I knew our time would fly because you got so much going on. You've come so far. As we kind of get ready to close, I want to make sure that we're covering, what you see going forward in terms of control. You alluded to some of it, and then any concluding remarks. And of course, please let people know how they can find you and reach you after the show.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm just incredibly thankful to be in this space, like many other operators and DSPs and stakeholders in the drone GIS space. It's incredibly humbling now to be. I turned 30 back in September, and I'm just thinking about how everyone's just been trying to make it with a drone and a hustle and a thing. So I'm incredibly thankful to all the people we worked with, that we continue to work with. The future of the space, and just that it's been nice to just be in a collaborative environment. So there's too long of a list to name, but everyone that would watch this would know who they are, that has helped Control get to this point and beyond. I think we're straddling SaaS services, consulting, for a variety of organizations, and I'm just excited for what the future has to hold. So, I mean, if you're looking to work at Control, we're looking at some strategic hires in 2025. So, be it GIS development, really poised and experienced drone operators that are looking for a little bit of variety, on the capture side and some management, things like that. We're looking to scale, obviously, within Canada and the US. So yeah, don't be shy. Reach out to us if you see us out at conferences and online. Again, just want to get into the space and create a good environment for our customers and our team to work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're
I
on
love that.
LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're trying to obviously beef up our online presence, and hopefully this relationship with P3 and yourself continues to grow, and we can come on the show again. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to have you. And for those that might be able to see you live at some event, what's kind of next up for you in terms of where you guys or some of your team might be headed to, maybe in the next, let's just say 6 months?
Yeah, I'd say I'm not sure what the VSI is, but definitely the more energy focused conferences. We tend to hang out at the Esri shows a lot, Esri user conferences, things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's actually, I think New York Build Show is coming up. That's a good one to hit. I'm not sure if there'll be tons of presence there, but there's also some Reuters conferences that I would urge anyone on the leadership management side of the space to look towards, as they usually aggregate and host a lot of amazing leaders around the world. And
Cool.
yeah, I would generally say as well, I think it's well known by now that we've branched out from the traditional drone and GIS conferences alone into the industry specific spaces.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, in Canada, I'm really excited about a lot of the incubators that are up here, the DMZ up in Toronto, Communitech here in Kitchener-Waterloo area. And so, a lot of these other tech incubators are really doubling down and hosting more events and creating a great networking atmosphere for tech startups. And so,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
I love to
yeah,
see that. I love to see that. As you were talking, Chris, I'm already in my brain thinking of all the people I want to connect you with, but like right off the top, I'll say it out loud because they're actually our month sponsor. If you're not talking to Airspace Link out of Michigan, out of Detroit, they work closely with Esri too, but the kind of air hub portal and the ground picture and working with municipalities, I could see a really good plug-in with you and them. But yeah, we'll talk more offline.
cool.
This was amazing. You got so
Right.
much going on. Is there an email or something people can reach you? I know you said LinkedIn, but is there another way or just through your website?
Sure. Yeah, it's just Chris at goctrl.ca, like gocontrol.ca. Like control itself costs too much money, so it was just an easy email to go by. So yeah, I can drop it there again in your link, and anyone can reach out to me at any time. Really, I'll obviously try to get back to you within a decent amount of response time, but
He's a busy guy,
happy
I
to chat
know,
to
I know.
anybody.
So no,
Yeah,
look, thanks for taking the time to kind of
of
walk
course.
us through your journey and talk about all the things you're doing and where you guys are going with Control, not just in Canada and the United States as well. Really great to have you on the show. And everybody out there, you heard it here. If you're looking for a job and you've got the resume, go ahead and give Chris a call. That's amazing. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, Chris. And we are out here.